afternoon and welcome. We're excited today. Today we have a very special guest with Julie and I. We have Mr. Tim Jeffcoat with the SBA Houston District Office, and we're going to talk about the infrastructure bill and the opportunities for small businesses. So Julie and I sort of switch off throughout this today. So if I'm speaking, she's managing the chat. If she's speaking, I'm managing the chat. Emily's going to be dropping a lot of information in the chat, so you sort of need to monitor that. There's going to be some great links and all of that. So Julie, are we ready?
We're ready. Let's begin.
All right. So we're going to be talking about some opportunities for you, your business, to get some of this infrastructure money. And opportunity, when you take these three letters out of it, is you. This is your chance to kind of really position your company to take advantage of some of these opportunities. So today, our session is going to help prepare you for federal government opportunities and contracts, prepare you for some state opportunities. It's going to set the foundation to ensure your success. And we're going to help you save some time and avoid mistakes. We're going to help you get ready to get your company ready to do the business. Of course, we're not going to be able to cover everything there is to know about the infrastructure bill. There is, we cover the information we have at this point. And of course, our disclaimer, this does not guarantee you a contract with any government agency. So what can you expect from us? Well, this is going to be an engaging session. There's going to be time for Q&A. We're going to want you to drop your questions into the chat so that we can answer. We're going to have some time for some open mic question and answer. We're going to give you some tools that you can start working on immediately. And of course, we hope that you will put together your victory plan. From you, we want you to listen and participate. Test drive some of these ideas, start doing some of the work now to prepare your company. Provide us some feedback. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you need for future presentations. And of course, we always want you to share and celebrate your successes so we can see how you're doing.
Hey, Susan, just 1 second. I want to just check. We have somebody saying that they cannot hear us. So if there's anybody else that can hear us, will you let us know? I just want to make sure before we get too far in. Somebody's saying, okay, it sounds like, okay, we're good. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to check. I wanted to make sure before we keep going.
Okay, so I also took a little bit step closer to the mic, but sometimes helps.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
That's okay. Our three buckets today are certifications that go across Texas. Because we don't know where the money is going to go. We want to make sure that your company has any relevant certifications that you might need. Tim is going to talk about this infrastructure bill. And then we're going to provide you some resources, some procurement sites that you need to be watching. And this is not just for the infrastructure bill. This is for any opportunities. And I don't want to say this too, loud, but, we're moving into hurricane season. And there's, not that we want a hurricane, but if there is, then there will be, disaster recovery money through some of these same entities. Now, I do know that we have some people that from out of Texas that are registered. And while some of these may not be relevant to you because they are Texas based, It'll give you the opportunity to do some research about what certifications are across your state. All right, a little bit about the speakers today. I'm Susan. I'm the co-founder of B2G. There's a little bit about my background information. So I've been working with small businesses for over 20 years. My co-founder, Julie Irvin Hartman, is a former certified woman-owned business owner and a certified proposal manager. She has lived in government contracting space for over 20 years, winning $4.5 billion for her clients. Emily Kelly is our project manager, and she is today managing all of our links that we're going to be providing you. So please watch your chat as well. And Emily and I have worked together for many years, and her background is just amazing and a perfect fit for B2G. So there is our contact information. Emily will be dropping that in the chat. We hope at the end of this session that you connect with us on social media. Tim Jeffcoat. He is the director of the U.S. Small Business Administration in Houston, which Houston is much bigger than just Harris County. I think he has 32 counties, right? Yeah, that's a big space of Texas. This is his background. He has been amazing. I've known Tim since he came to Houston, so we're excited to have him here today. There is his contact information. And so Emily's going to drop that in the chat. So we want you to grab some paper and a pen and start writing down what actions you're going to be taking next week, the rest of quarter two. It's kind of amazing that we're in the second quarter, Q3 and Q4. Government contracting is a marathon, not a sprint. So you need to start putting some plans in together now of how you're going to get some of these government opportunities that we see every day. There are, we're talking about the infrastructure, but there are government opportunities being posted on a daily basis. You just have to know where to look and what you need to have in place. All right, so let's start talking about certifications. And we're going to do this a little bit by fire hose, because we're going to go through them very quickly. We want to give the bulk of our time today to Tim. So, certifications can be a little bit of an alphabet soup. There are all of these different certifications by different entities, and you have to kind of know which one are the best fit for your company, from veteran-owned to 8A. So we're going to go over very quickly all of them and drop you links to the pages that you can find out more information. Obviously, we can't go into too much detail about every one of them, or we would go through our entire 90 minutes. Most of the certifications are based on your status, 51% owned, operated, and controlled by a veteran, by a woman, by a minority. There are some that are have different criteria, but that's going to be a majority of this. And certifications, your company cannot exceed the small business size standard, which in reality is not all that small. Certifications are for you to use to grow your business. We tell people all the time, these are not wall art. Don't just hang them on the wall or in the field of dreams. I built it. They will come. Well, that's not how government contracting works. You have to go find the opportunities. You have to respond to the opportunities. So get ready. All right, veteran-owned small business and service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. This certification is through the federal government. Your company must be verified that you are 51% owned, operated, and controlled by a veteran or service disabled veteran. So Emily's dropping in the site for the certification as well as the verification. Hub zone. Now, for those of you in Texas, this is not the state of Texas Hub program. This is the federal certification of Hub zone, and it is based on the location of your company, as well as 35% of your employees must be located in a hub zone, not necessarily the same hub zone as your business. This is a hub zone map of the US. A little bit closer to us here in Houston, here's a hub zone map of Houston. And if you look, actually the zip code 77021 is in a hub zone. So that sort of helps you narrow it down. That website that Emily just dropped in, you can actually put in your address and find out whether you're in a hub zone. If you are, then you would put in your employee's address to verify that. The SBA women-owned small business and the economically disadvantaged women-owned small business. We are actually going to have a session on that next week. So if you already have your women-owned small business certification, we're going to talk about how to maximize that. So this company had to be women-owned small business. The company has to be 51% owned, operated, and controlled by a woman or women. And there are set-asides for WOSB. So again, you need to get that certification. All right, we have the 8A certification. And the federal government's 5% goal for 8A. I understand that may be increasing soon, so we're excited about that. And the individuals that are part of the 8A program, it is a 9-year program. So once you reach that 9-year stage, then you are, you come out of it. So while this is a very important certification, you need to make sure that your company is ready, willing, and able to handle some federal contracting. If not, then you have lost a couple of years as you position your company. So you need to get ready before you apply for this, because once you're in, and you cannot come back and go, oh, I missed the first 3 years. I want to extend it, or I can't come back. You can't get certified again. So this is a great program. There's a lot of advantages to be in the 8A program, but you need to be ready. Here are some of the program qualifications. And then, of course, we have the small disadvantaged business, which is your 10% of the federal contracts, or roughly $50 billion in contracts, go to small disadvantaged businesses. Emily, am I going too fast? Keeping up with me? Okay. All right, let's take it a little bit closer to home. We have the Texas Historically Underutilized Business Program. That is for all state of Texas agencies. We've listed their hub goals. And let me tell you something. They have not always met those goals. I would say most of the time they do not meet the goals. And some of this money, it will be coming down to a state level. So if you're not certified with the state of Texas and you are at least 51% woman-owned, minority-owned, or service-disabled veteran-owned, you might want to apply for that certification. Whew, the Texas Unified Certification Program. This is a disadvantaged business enterprise certification. And this is based on the owner's personal net worth statement. So there is a certain criteria that a company would have to meet based on the personal net worth of the owners. There are 6 agencies here in Texas that provide that certification. Now we're going to go back a little bit national. and talk about the National Minority Supplier Development Council. In NMSDC, they do certification for the corporate Fortune 500 companies. Now, you may ask why they're on the list. Well, some of this money may go to transportation or broadband. So some of this money may actually end up with them, and they have contracts that you want to subcontract with. So to be eligible for this certification, your company must be at least 51% minority owned, operated, and controlled. So we have listed some of the companies that accept this certification. Those with asterisks are companies that are part of the Houston Council. And we have the Women's Enterprise National Council, WeBank, and they do certification for women-owned businesses. 51% owned, operated, and controlled by a woman or women. And again, we've listed some of the corporations that accept the certification. Those with one asterisk are Houston members, and 2 asterisks are actually Women's Business Council Southwest, which is in Dallas. Woo, and then we have additional certifications. We have the North Central Texas Regional Certification. So we're just kind of bouncing all over. This organization does WBE, MBE, ACDBE, which is Airport Concession DBE, Small Business Certification, and DBE. So if you're in the Dallas area, the city of Dallas accepts the certification, the city of Fort Worth. So instead of them doing their own certification, they accept the certification from this organization. And sort of a partner with that is the South Central Texas Regional Certification. Again, WBE, MBE, ACDBE, SBE, and DBE. Now, if you're not from the San Antonio area and you see Port San Antonio, you probably are wondering about that, because I did. It is the old Kelly base that has been turned into a really cool business center that is called Port San Antonio. Because I was like, there is no water. You're not doing this on the Riverwalk. The city of Austin and the city of Houston have their own certification programs. The city of Houston's OBO handles that, and the city of Austin is handled through their finance department. It's MBE, WBE, SBE, DBE, and ACDBE. And in the transportation area, Metro, our Houston Metro has a certification program. They are also part of the TUCP, and they provide they also provide the small business certification. Now you're probably wondering where you're going to have all this time to get all of these certifications. Keep in mind that 50 to 60% of the content is used from one certification to the other. If you don't have time to get all of this done, just know that we can help you get these certifications, and you just need to be extremely organized. So some of the, we did federal, we did state. There are also counties and cities and school districts that have small business programs, Fortune 500 companies, prime contractors. So these certifications sort of cross-pollinate between different entities. So we always tell you, pick 5 entities that you are wanting to do business with, determine what certifications, what small business programs they have, and then get those certifications. That way you're not, you're not getting a certification that may not be the best fit for who you want to do business with. So always take the time to figure out what certifications they accept. And most of the time you can find that very quickly on their website. And if not, just shoot us an email and say, hey, what certification does Port Houston accept? And I can just rattle that off for you. The SBA has a wonderful tool if you're after these federal certifications. I love it. You can actually just sort of answer the questions. They will let you know what certifications you are eligible for. And it's called the Am I Eligible tool. Woo, certification by fire hose. And now, Tim.
All right. So hello, everyone. Let me get my slides worked up here. You should be able to see that now.
We can, Tim. You're all good.
So I'm going to move pretty quickly. If you didn't have your coffee, you probably want to go grab some because I'm going to move pretty fast. There's a good amount of information to cover, but it's going to flow well. So I want to give you just a fast introduction to who the Small Business Administration is, but then specifically the Infrastructure Act. I want to talk about how the president is directly supported. I want to give you a little bit of a background on how federal grant money and funds for contracts get distributed. Then I'll talk to you about the contracts that are likely to be available nationally and in Texas now and beyond 2022. And then finally, give you ideas on how you might want to participate in these contracts or how you might want to get your share. So SBA is a cabinet level agency. That means my boss works for President Biden. We're the only agency that's exclusively focused on helping Americans start and grow small businesses. My office, as was mentioned, 32 counties, the most important 32 counties of Southeast Texas. What is a small business? That's a really important point. I'm sure everyone on here today is a small business because folks with up to 1,500 employees that are in a manufacturing or processing environment are usually considered small. And service businesses up to $41.5 million a year in revenue, and some examples are there on the screen, like car rental and trash collection, are considered small, with the outcome being, in my district, 99.5% of the businesses are small, about 785,000 of them. So when you look around Houston, virtually every business you see is going to be small by the SBA standards. So we do four things. We help businesses find capital they need, counseling, we help them when there's a time of crisis, and then pertinent to today, we help them with what we call contracting. So just, again, a quick overview. In fiscal year 2021, we help businesses right here in the Houston area get bank loans for $1.5 billion. We also, when you need counseling for your business, do there that are, I think, worth noting. First, office does a lot of outreach. We spend a lot of time trying to educate the public and link you to our services. This, what you see is our dashboard, and it's telling you that since the beginning of COVID, we did over 1,600 webinars for about 140,000 people. All different topics, all different presenters, different times of day, etc. So we spend a lot of time doing exactly what I'm doing right now. And then we do have these four, what we call resource partners here in the Houston area. We help fund these organizations, so they're available to help you at no charge. Between these four organizations, there's about 250 advisors, mentors, and counselors that can sit down with you tomorrow and start working with you on a growth plan for your business that involves the infrastructure or the infrastructure bill. They can also help you in any other capacity that you need for your small business. When there's a crisis, that's the only time that SBA does direct lending. We not only lend to small businesses, but we lend to nonprofits, homeowners, and big businesses. We make sure that with those resource partners I mentioned, that we can give you the counseling help your business recover from a disaster. So to give you an example, in Hurricane Harvey, there's about 43,000 loans for $3.4 billion to help Houstonians recover from that hurricane. COVID is a different kind of disaster. We call that an economic disaster. With COVID, it's been nearly $40 billion, about 548,000 different pieces of funding to help the small businesses in my district. And then finally, when we talk about contracting, that's when we help Americans grow their small businesses. You heard some talk about the special certification. Those make a difference. Those can give you access to federal contracts you might not get otherwise. And available to those certified firms, special training that is at no charge. We already pay for it to help them succeed. Just here in the Houston area last year, there was $1.3 billion in federal contracts. I noticed a bunch of women on here. You should know that women-owned small businesses got $202 million worth of contracts just here in the Houston area. We also talked a little bit about the 8A program. We can tell you more about that. My office does webinars and seminars about the 8A program on a regular basis. You can certainly attend one of those. But these 25 orders that happened last year were to businesses that my office works with directly. At the very bottom of the list, you see J.G. Haney got a $4,500 order for communications equipment. I think that's great. But if you want to slide up the list, number 17, J.K. Premier Dining, $775,000 worth of food contracting. Or let's look at number 10, Impact Strategic Consulting, doing general management consulting, $3 million. Or let's look at Lakey, number 2. They had a $13 million order for construction. If we look at these 25 orders, the average is probably a little more than $3 million per. So the firms that we work with here in Houston that want to pursue federal contracts, and in this case, doing it through the 8A program, are really doing quite well. So let's get started. Let's talk about the Infrastructure Act. First, my disclaimer, I am not an expert. Everything I'm showing you, you can go find online. I just happen to find it in a way that hopefully it'll be easier for you to digest. This Infrastructure Act, it's important to also know that President Biden has told all of the federal government that he is telling us that 15%, 15% contracts need to go to small disadvantaged businesses by 2025. And for this year, he says you need to hit 11%. This is up from what used to be a 5%. This is great news. What this means is that the federal government as a whole is focusing on how do we put these contracts into the hands of small businesses, and in this case, small disadvantaged businesses. Now let me talk a little bit about the act in terms of how that money is going to flow to the states and eventually turn into a contract that your company hopefully can get. This is the simplest flow chart that I've got. And what it says at the top is that Congress appropriates money. That's called the Infrastructure Act in this case. And then that money goes to different agencies in the government that are responsible for that money. And we'll talk about who some of those agencies are. Then they will either issue contracts to vendors to provide those services, or they will subgrant that information to the state. And then the states will either use that money to have competitive contracts, or they will subgrant it to the local areas, such as the city of Houston, for them to use some of that money for competitive contract opportunities. So the important thing for you to know is that it's a multi-step process and it takes a little time. That's good for you because we're still in the early days of this and you still have a good opportunity to get together a plan to go win some of these contracts. I do want to point out, and I won't go over all these details, I'm just going to gloss over it, but a lot of the Infrastructure Act is new to the world programs. What that means is these brand new programs are not going to happen. The agencies that are receiving this funding have to invent the programs, decide whether they're going to pursue contracts at the federal level or whether it needs to happen at the state level, things of that nature. So it is going to take a little bit time for that to happen. The last time we had something like this occur, it was the American Reinvestment Act under the Obama administration. There, the Department of Transportation only issued 9 in 6 months, and then about 50% of it in the first 18 months. So right now, we're still within the first 6 months, so only a small percentage of the funding has actually done anything in all likelihood. There's another factor that kind of slowed things down with the Infrastructure Act, and that's that the federal government just got its budget sorted out. So it's still, as I say, very early days. So what do you need to know about the Infrastructure Act? Well, these are the buckets. I'll let you look over this for a little bit, but the biggest bucket is roads, bridges, and other major projects. And on the bottom right hand, the smallest category is safety and research. But there's all different classifications of projects. It looks a little bit like this. All this over here in blue on the left-hand side, or that might look gray to you, just depends. That's transportation related. So that's probably going to be a lot of construction projects. All of this on the right, which is roughly half of the bill, are completely different kinds of projects. So these, as you see, well, I'll go to the next slide and we'll go over them in a little bit of detail. This is the way it breaks out. The transportation projects are in these 9, again, kind of buckets. Roads and bridges, rail, public transportation, airports, ports, transportation safety, electric vehicle infrastructure, which I think is great news because I might be buying an electric vehicle this year. Buses and ferries that are zero or low emission, and then something called revitalization of communities. So those are the categories of transportation projects. Now, about half of the money is split up in these other 5 big projects. Broadband internet. This is bringing internet to every home and every business in the United States. Upgrading and modernization of our power infrastructure. Making sure that there is clean drinking water. Number 4, I'm telling you, is probably one of the most important ones on this page in some respects, because that's making sure that the Western United States has a reliable, resilient water system, because that's actually where most of our vegetables come from. And then removal of pollution from water and soil. These are the, 14 major projects in the Infrastructure Act. So let's break them down a little bit. When we look at these transportation projects, you see out here on the right-hand side of each one of these, I have USDOT, 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 it's all of them. So this money is going to flow from Congress to the United States Department of Transportation, where they will do roughly one of 2 things. They'll either go ahead and grant a bunch of this money straight to the states, and that's called a formula grant. What they do is based on the number of miles of roads we have, the number of bridges we have, the amount of population we have. There's a formula. They plug all that in there, and it comes up and says, okay, send 20% of the money to Texas. Now, I don't know if it's 20%. I made that up. And so some of that money will flow quickly in these categories that we already discussed. And then the remaining 4 projects that for transportation, again, these are also going through the United States Department of Transportation. Now, it is possible that one of these won't flow down to the states. Let's just look at number 7 for electric vehicle charging stations across the United States. It's possible that Department of Transportation will do a big contract for this for big national providers of electricity recharging. That's possible. We don't know, right? Because this is brand new to the world project. And right now, people at USDOT are figuring out what's the best way to spend this $7.5 billion to make sure that it achieves the goal that we have for that project of charging stations for electric vehicles. But most of this, in my opinion, is going to be flowing to the states. If we look at these other 5 projects, all very important, broadband internet is mostly going to go through the United States Commerce Department. Some of it is going to go through the Federal Communications Commission. Power infrastructure, it looks like that's going to go through the Department of Energy, and some of it may be going through the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Clean drinking water, that's EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. Resilience and Western Water Storage that's a few different organizations actually that are going to be involved in that. Most of it is the Department of the Interior. A good part of it will probably be the U.S. Department of Agriculture, but Homeland Security is going to have a stake in this because they want that water system to be secure. And finally, removal of pollution is going to be the Environmental Protection Agency. These 5 pieces of the Infrastructure Act, again, in my opinion, for what it's worth, I think these might result in contracts that come directly from the agency. It's possible that U.S. Commerce and FCC will get together and define contract programs that they will then compete at the federal level for big national providers of internet services. The same, I think, is true for the remainder of those. They might get some of it granted down to the states to award locally, but I think a fair percentage of this may wind up going on a national contract, a federal contract. So that's just an overview of the Act and the money in it, $550 billion worth of projects. What's going to happen in Texas? Well, this is what we know right now. Texas has had a systemic lack of investment in transportation. About 20,000 miles of highway in poor condition, 818 bridges in need of repair. The average commute time in the last 10 years increased about 12%. Drivers are paying over $700 a year more driving because of roads that are not in good shape. 12% of our transit vehicles are beyond their useful life. And the American Society of Civil Engineers gave us a C on our infrastructure report card. Now, I'll tell you, that's actually not bad. That means we're average. There are other states that are in much worse condition, and some that might be better. So we're average bad. But here's what's happening that I have been able to find right now. These should be all formula grants. If they're not, a couple of them might be competitive. So right away, Texas is supposed to get $27 billion for highways and bridges, $3.4 billion for public transportation, $1.2 billion for airports, specifically improving runways, taxiways, terminal development, noise reduction, $641 million transportation emission control, $408 million for electric vehicle charging, $247 million to reduce commercial motor vehicle crashes. Let's just stop for a minute. How do you stop commercial vehicles from crashing? Well, one of the things you may be doing is you may be developing some data models and data analysis tools for departments of transportation to assess the problems. So this one might not be a construction project. This might be an IT project, whereas a bridge is going to be, and I believe a bridge will be a construction project. And then $153 million for highway safety traffic programs. Again, that may not be a construction project. That may be more of an intellectual project. And then in 2022, there are competitive grants that Texas can compete for. So these grants will be made available to all states, and the states will basically bid on them. And whoever presents the most compelling case will be receiving grant money. So you can look at the list for yourself. I'll just do you a quick overview. A lot more money, $50 billion for bridges, what are called mega projects. So these are construction projects that will deliver a substantial economic benefit to a community, such as increasing the flow of traffic, increasing the speed of the flow of traffic, resilience of transportation, safe streets, rail improvement, grade crossing improvements, more electrical vehicle charging, more airport terminal development, modernizing data collection systems. Again, remember I said there'd be some IT stuff there. And then funding for community-owned utilities. And then when we look beyond 2022, 2023 and beyond, there's going to be at least 20 competitive grants that I have found for about $122 billion. Lots of money for more safe streets, reducing crashes in fatalities, more money for surface transportation projects, freight infrastructure, zero emission, low emission buses, money for bus related facilities to make them capable of working with these low or no emission vehicles, high capacity transit projects, $23 billion there, more airport terminal development, and more mega projects, increasing resilience of the transportation system, improving the supply chain, passenger ferry programs, more work for bridges, upgrading transit stations, more money for charging systems for electric cars, money for reconnecting communities. So this is where a community has been separated by a highway that was built through it, for instance. So a way to get those communities back together again, more transportation safety, more surface transportation programs. So I know I went through that a little bit. What you should have heard me say is there's $550 billion. It's just now starting to get to the agencies and get put into either grant packages to the states or into contract packages where these bids will occur at the federal level. So as we speak, City of Houston, Harris County, Fort Bend County, City of Sugar Land, State of Texas, etc., they should be sitting down working on, okay, what do we need? Which of these things are we going to go after? Which grants are we going to pursue? What are we going to do with the formula grant money? Which roads need to be fixed the best? Which bridge be fixed in the most urgent situation? So that's happening as we speak. So this is the time for you to get your plan together to go win some of these projects. You got 4 alternatives going forward as I see it. 1, you can go after the federal projects. Remember, I mentioned that Commerce, EPA, Department of Energy, Department of Interior, Homeland, USDA, they're probably going to be doing some large national competitions. Odds are you won't be the winner. The odds are those are going to be very large companies like Hughes Satellite. Hughes Satellite can deliver internet anywhere in the United States. You don't have to have wires to it because they do it over satellite. So maybe they will be somebody that will go after that big contract. So those are probably the kinds of businesses that will win at the federal level. Some of you might be able to participate or compete with some contracts that might be by US DOT. That's possible. So it doesn't mean you shouldn't look there. It just means it's likely to be big. The second level, state projects. Guarantee you, TxDOT is going to be getting a lot of this money, and they're going to be doing a lot of construction for the next 5 or 10 years to improve and take advantage of this opportunity. Then there will be local projects for you to bid on, such as Harris County, City of Houston, Metro, the Port of Houston. So that money will eventually trickle down to them. I don't believe they're seeing any money yet. My guess is it would be late this calendar year, could be sooner. But then the fourth one, really want you to consider, and I'll talk more about this, subcontracting to prime contractors. So the guys that are going to win those contracts in number 1, those very large companies, if you're a subcontractor to them, excuse me, if you're a subcontractor to them, you can get a pretty significant piece of helping them execute their big contract. I want to introduce you to this organization, the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, or PTAC, right here in Houston, and it's one of the best PTACs in the United States. There's one of these in every state, and what they do is they help you get your plans organized and go pursue contracts. Usually they focus on federal contracts. We happen to have one that also understands and supports you well with doing state and local contracts. They don't charge for their services. They are funded by the United States government and by the University of Houston. And if you're not from Houston, then this directory that's shown at the bottom, or this web link, you can go to that web link and you can find the PTAC that is in your area. If you're not in the Houston area, then this PTAC won't work with you because they have plenty of work to do just with the 785,000 small businesses here in the Houston area. And as we go through here, that's obviously their address and contact info. You see these 2 red stars. I'm going to have information in the remaining slides that came directly from PTAC for your benefit, and I just want to highlight for you which ones were theirs. So if you're going to compete at the federal level, and again, I'm going to go over this quickly. This is exactly the kind of thing that PTAC and our other SBA resource partners can help you with. You need, well, it was a DUNS number. It just changed. It's now a different kind of number. But you need this number that identifies your business. You got to identify your North American Industrial Classification Code that identifies the industry that you work in. You've got to be a small business. You've already seen some of this that was presented to you earlier by Susan. You'll need to register in a federal system called System for Award Management. You must be in there or you can't do business with the federal government. You should also register with an SBA website called the Dynamic Small Business Search. At this database, this is where federal procurement officers go search for small businesses to do business with. So you definitely want to be in there. Those certifications Susan was talking about, man, they're really important in some respects. They're optional. You don't have to do it. But let's say you certify as a woman-owned business. Those big contractors I mentioned will be looking for women-owned business to subcontract work to. If you have the certification, then that matters. Same goes with the 8A program, which is for people with an economic and cultural disadvantage. The historically underutilized business zone program that Susan talked about, that's geographical. And then the service disabled veteran-owned small business. Number 7, you want to become acquainted with what's called the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulations. My office can help you with that. There are some free training classes we can link you with that can help teach you a little bit about the FAR. In this sam.gov database or website that I told you about, you want to set up your searches. You want to be able to look for these opportunities as they come available, and it will automatically spit them out to you so that you know when those opportunities are available to bid on. You want to develop what's called a capability statement. So this is kind of like a 30-second pitch, but on a sheet of paper. Often it's 2 sides that tells a procurement official in a nutshell who you are, why you matter, what services you provide, and you need to say it a particular way that makes it easy for them. Not hard to do, but there is a right way to do that. Be sure you can obtain bonding. Particularly for construction projects, you may need performance bonds, bid bonds, payment bonds, different kinds of bonds. The SBA can help you with that too. We will, in effect, co-sign or guarantee on bonds so you get a greater bond amount for your firm so you can take on larger projects. And then the final recommendation here is when there's an opportunity that you see on sam.gov for a bid opportunity, they usually have a pre-solicitation conference. I want you to go to that. You want to go to that pre-solicitation conference. Not only will you learn more about the situation,
Tim, are you there? Emily, can you hear him? He froze, correct? He did freeze. Okay. So we're going to do a quick shift and change here. And I'm going to share my screen and we'll go ahead and talk about where the funds might go. Tim talked about that a little bit, and until we can get him back.
Okay, how about now?
Oh, you're back. Awesome. All right. So perfect. Boy, that was a quick change. All right.
How about that?
You're back.
Okay, all right,
Awesome.
very good. I'm back. I didn't leave you. All right. So I was just saying that if you think you will do business directly with the U.S. Department of Transportation, then you want to look at the information on this slide. For everybody else, this is entirely optional. But essentially, you can go to their website, find out what they do the most of, what they're forecasting for the next few years that they're going to buy, and then that'll give you some ideas of what to do with DOT. Whoops. This may be the most important slide that I presented to you today, and I'm almost at the end. I made you tired by now. Federal certifications can really make a difference when going after this infrastructure business opportunities. Here's what you need to know. When a business gets a federal award greater than $150,000, and you saw the ones I showed you earlier, most of those were more than $750,000, then they are often required to subcontract portions of that contract to small businesses. And it frequently works out that 5% has to be subcontracted to a woman-owned business, 5% to an 8A, 3% to a hub zone, 3% to a service-disabled veteran-owned small business. Doesn't always work out that way, but that's frequently the way it works. So there should be significant opportunities to do business with these big prime contractors. So get those certifications, one or more. You're not restricted to one. If you qualify for all four, go for it. We have a website at SBA called, and that lists the folks that are looking for subcontracts. So the prime contractors can go there and find you. The SBA prime directory is the opposite. It shows you the prime contractors that are looking for subs. Department of Transportation has something similar. And then at the General Services Administration, or the GSA, they also have some tools to help you find subcontracts. In the state of Texas, if you were going to participate, now everything I just showed you is a federal level. Now we're going to switch to Texas, and this came from my friends at PTAC. If you're going to do business in the state of Texas, you want to be on the centralized master bidders list. It costs $70, but if you don't get on it, then you're not going to know about these opportunities in all likelihood. Earlier, I said with federal, you need to know your NAICS code. Here, you need something called your NIGP code. And again, code that identifies your industry. If you want to do construction related to highway districts, then you just choose the highway districts that you are interested in, and you'll only get notices of solicitations for those areas. You also want to learn to do what's called a one-time search on the Electronic State Business Daily. This is where they all their solicitations over $25,000. And if you don't use CMBL, then it's the only way you'll know these opportunities exist. A lot like when I talked about getting certifications for federal contracts. Well, here you can look at the Texas Hub program, which is not the same as the federal hub zone, which is mainly minority, women, and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. You can get certified by TxDOT as a small business enterprise, produce your capability statement that I mentioned. It's just like the federal capability statement, but uses NIGP codes. Make sure you can get bonding. You frequently need bonding for state contracts. And again, if there are pre-solicitation conferences, go to them. Local contracts. It's basically the same thing. Get registered with the areas you want to do business, get on their bidders list, make sure you can get bonding, watch for opportunities, go to pre-bid conferences. Some specific examples. I know if you could click these links, this link will take you to the Harris County site that shows their contracts that are available. That one shows you where to go for the city of Houston, who can also, as Susan mentioned, certify you as a DBE. That link right there takes you to Metro Transportation's site, and then this one takes you to the Port of Houston site. You can go find all these sites for yourself. This is just collecting them into one central location for you to see. Don't forget, PTAC can be available to help you with these contracts. Now they are limited by their grant from the federal government to only working with businesses that are basically ready to do contracting. If you're not ready for it, PTAC can't take you as a client. It's not that they don't love you, they just can't take you on. But our resource partners absolutely can take you on. So just a reminder, there's PTAC's information. I'll leave it there for just a second. 1, 2, 3, all right. And then those are our partners. I absolutely encourage you to contact one of them. If you're interested in this, contact them today. Get set up with one of their advisors or mentors. Tell them, I want to be able to exploit this opportunity, because who knows when there's going to be another $550 billion available that you might be able to get a piece of. So right now, you want to develop your plan for going after this and being able to win some of these contracts. If you wait 6 months, the door might be closed. And that's my contact info if you want to reach my office. I do want to point out, if you go to this website over here on the left, sba.gov/tx/Houston, you can sign up for our resource guide. You can sign up for getting email updates from us, and you do want those. They come out about once or twice a week. And our webinar schedule. We do things like I'm doing right now, multiple ones every day. So there's lots of things we do to help small businesses, and that's how you can plug yourself in. And Susan, I believe I have reached the end of my presentation. You want to do some questions now?
Yes, we are. We're going to open it up for question and answer. And Tim, thank you so much. He's such a huge wealth of knowledge and information, not only on the federal level, but the state and all the way through. There's been lots of questions in the chat, as well as in the question and answer regarding the content, because there's a lot, and it can be a bit overwhelming. So all of these links that we've been putting in the chat, Emily is going to get all of those organized. All of the links in Susan's presentation, all of the links in Tim's presentation are all going to be in one document. That's going to be available on our website, where we have post seminars. So if you weren't able to attend any of our other seminars, there's information there as well. This entire presentation is recorded, and it will be posted probably next week on our YouTube channel. So everyone who is here, we will send you out the link when the information is posted to our website, as well as when the recording is ready and available for you on our YouTube channel. So lots of great questions. We're going to open it up for Tim. So if you can raise your hand if you have a question, then we'll go ahead and unmute you. We're loving all of this interaction and engagement. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start unmuting as people are raising their hands, and we'll just kind of work our way through the list.
Great.
Okay, Anthony, you should be able to talk now if you'll turn your mic on.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Hi there. My name is Anthony Lampe. I own a technology consultancy with a focus on web design and app and custom software development and video production. We've worked as a subcontractor for construction companies, specifically the Drive 288 project, to help them with some website stuff. Alrighty, so we've done that. We were brought in as a subcontractor, contacted directly. We never actually applied for anything like in this conventional route. So I'm interested in doing more of that work, because we actually had a really great time working on it. But I've never gone through the government hoops before. So specifically for the kinds of work that we're doing, do you have any tips as to how we could go about finding work, let's say maybe for some of these prime contractors where, you know, we're a tech company, right? So we do technology work, and I can see some potential, especially with data analytics. You mentioned that. So do you have any tips on how we could apply for work to do that kind of work using?
Yeah, I got a couple of things I'll say, and we've added Miguel Ruiz to the panelists here. Miguel works at the SBA in Houston, and Miguel, if you have comments anytime, please jump in. Anthony, I got two recommendations.
Sure.
One is to think of certifications and whether those fit for you, those federal certifications, because these contractors, especially the big contracts that I believe are going to get awarded, they're going to need a whole team working on subcontractor development.
Yeah.
So if in that you already have experience in transportation projects, that makes you somebody that could potentially be very interesting to them.
Okay.
If you know big contractors that right now you believe will probably be going after this work, you want to let them know you're and if you're able to say, and they really want to know that, because that helps satisfy us, the federal government.
Right. Okay.
Now, the second thing is System for Award Management. So that's the federal database or the federal website. I keep saying those interchangeably, and they aren't really interchangeable. But if you're set up on SAM, if your business is set up on SAM, then you can look for opportunities on SAM. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of bids that come up every day on that website that you can
Yeah.
then determine whether you would want to pursue those or not. How
Okay.
big is your firm? How many people have you got?
We're a team of 10.
Okay, so it's probably too early for you
Yeah.
because it takes some resources. But a third way is you target the agencies that you know need to buy what you offer, and you influence them now.
Okay.
You learn who their program managers are that wind up writing the bid specs for these kinds of opportunities, and you influence them today. Then when they release their bid specs, it's already got you written all in there. That doesn't
Right.
mean it's going to be just for you. You could easily lose that contract to somebody else.
Sure.
But it does mean that you're helping them develop what they're going to wind up putting out there for bid specs. And we do this all the time in the federal government because we don't know how to develop websites and how to do video production. All we know is we have a problem.
And I thank you for that, by the way, because it keeps us in business.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, that's great info. Yeah, and I'm also definitely interested in talking to some of the resources you all have mentioned here about this. A score. I've dealt with score in the past, so that might be helpful here. Did anyone else have any other tips regarding our skill sets in alignment with these projects?
If I could add on to what Tim said. So Tim was explaining about using SAM.gov in the contract opportunities section of that. And you just have to have the resources to be able to go do a deep dive and set up those ticklers when they have notices of special meetings or whatnot, when they have like pre-bid meetings. And that was something that was echoed by B2G earlier in this presentation, is that pre-bid meetings are a fantastic way to go meet with not only other small businesses, but potential people to work for as subcontractors. So whenever you see that information, you drill down to it in SAM.gov. It's within each solicitation in the commercial masters bidders list. When you look the electronic state business daily, that will also be a drill down as well, and they will update you on when those pre-bid meetings are.
Okay.
Go to industry days. Industry days are fantastic for reaching out. The general overview of that is that they're wanting, here's how to do business with us. NASA is about to have one next week. The Small Business Council is putting on for them. So, like I said, these are great opportunities. And again, leverage your resources, leverage, whether it be B2G, whether it be PTAC, SCORE, SBDC, whoever it is, leverage them, because as we're fond of saying, is if I can't answer it, I'll find somebody that does. And that's what our resource network does.
Just like Miguel and Tim said, and I think Susan said it earlier, do your research, figure out what agencies you want to do work for, narrow that down to 5, and then do that deep dive. Because if you get fractured and there's a shiny squirrel over here, and then somebody said, oh, I heard about this over here.
Right.
With a team of 10, you're going to get so stretched that A, you're not going to be able to measure your results. B, you're not going to be able to establish really good relationships with people. And then most importantly, you're not going to get any projects or generate any revenue or any profit. So be very laser and intentional and strategic about it, and take advantage of those resources. Do the research. If you need help doing research, we're here, the SBA is here. And then have a plan, have a roadmap, and follow up just as you would in the commercial sector, in the private sector, because people do business with people that they trust.
Right.
And how do you build trust? You're consistent, you're professional, and you do what you say you're going to do.
All right, so we have 5 raised.
So we have raised hands. We're going to move on to the next couple, but thank you, Anthony, for
Thank you so much.
engagement and your great questions to kick us off. Emily, who's next?
All right, Tim, you should be able to speak if you will unmute yourself.
Love that name, Tim.
Tim, are you there? All right, we'll move on to the next and come back to Tim. Okay, Alicia, you are muted. If you will unmute, you can now ask your question.
Hi, and thanks for facilitating this webinar. It's been very helpful. My question is about the hub zone designation and the hub zone map. And I'm concerned about a community that to me seems to have been an error and carved out of a hub zone designation because all of the surrounding communities are designated hub zone. It's the same community. It's experienced the same decay and neglect and crime, and it's no different from the folks across the street. And so literally on one side of the street, it's a hub zone. On the other side of the street, and this is on Homestead Road for any of you who are in the Houston area. And literally on the other side of the street, it's not. And so I feel like it's an error. It may not be, but I've been trying to figure out who I could talk to about it.
Yeah, so the way that's done is there's what's called census tracts are looked at. So a particular chunk of land, and it could be that it's on the very edge of that chunk. This much of it, maybe, when they look at the socioeconomic levels, the percentage of unemployment, and other factors, they decide that's not historically underutilized. That's a vital area. It could be that right on the edge of it, that's not true. And that does happen. Miguel, is there a particular website or something that one can send a request to take a look at a particular area?
So they can put in HubZone at SBA.gov is the collection point there for the HubZone program and headquarters. But just to add on to what you said, so that decennial information from the census, it's broken down to the Department of Labor gets it to figure out where are labor surplus areas. So I'm not saying that area is or isn't. I'm just saying that it could be designated as a labor surplus area, and therefore now it's part of the hub zone. But if it's not going to be part of the hub zone as far as the Department of Labor. HUD will look at it and say all the different low to moderate income areas, and they will provide it to SBA. And then SBA will bring together a culmination of not only those two, but things like disaster areas, base realignment and closure areas. There's a variety of different area of components, and then they go to designate that. But again, a lot of it is based upon what the decennial census. We're still waiting on the 2020 to roll out and change these. Most of the hub zones in our area are through 2024, largely because of tropical storms and hurricanes. There's a time added for so they're temporarily a hub zone if they weren't beforehand. So the design of hub zone is there's an obsolescence built in. As monies go into a hub zone, it's going to raise it up. And again, it just barely cleared. I don't know. But hub zone at SBA.gov is a decent conduit there to try to do it. Tim, if you want us to pass along that maybe a more pointed contact there, just tell them we'll do that.
Okay. Yeah, and Emily, I'm going to jump in real quick. Sorry to do this to you, but Francis asked a question I saw on that chat, and I think it's something we want to address. And she asked that she was in a webinar recently that Miguel was in and said something about we don't use the label minority business. That's absolutely true. The federal government does not recognize a category called a minority business, not the SBA anyway. What we recognize as businesses that are economically and or socially disadvantaged. So the social disadvantage can mean you are a minority, but it can also mean you're physically handicapped. It just means you have a disadvantage for success. So, on the state level, on the local level, you might hear about a minority business program, blah, blah, blah. It just doesn't really exist at the federal level. Ours is a broader definition.
Great question, and thank you for clarifying. Because there's so many certifications on the local, state,
Right.
and federal level, and it can be really, really confusing. We're actually working on a matrix that has all the different certifications, whether they're state, local, or federal, and if there's any reciprocity between them. We're hoping to get that up on our website within the next couple of months. Emily and Susan have been working very diligently on that in the background to help clarify some of this confusion, because we want to help y'all and have you spend your time doing work and winning projects, not figuring out acronyms and where do I need to go and where do I need to be. If you're spending more than 15 or 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes on something, stop and ask for help. There are a ton of resources available for you. Who's next, Emily?
All right. Let's try Tim Moore. Are you there? I know we tried. I think you might have tried to hop in right as we switched over earlier.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Structure design.
Yeah, I'm Tim Moore, Structure Design Group. I'm certified. I got a lot of certification. I just applied for my veteran certification, and I'm in the process of that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, maybe speak up just a little bit louder, Tim.
Can you hear me now?
Much better, thank you.
Okay, I'll turn up the volume. I got my hub certification. I got certified through the city of Houston, and with my B2G, my hub certification is showing up, but in my central master builder list, it's saying inactive. And sometime I may even have to go and send my certificate to whoever I'm trying to solicit to or whatever, because they're saying I'm not showing up in the CBNL. And I called CBNL, I called the city of Houston, and that was since since the fall of 2021. I'm trying to figure out how do they resolve it.
So we're going to try to unpack that a little bit to give you some guidance. When you got your hub certification, did you go directly to the state of Texas, or did the city of Houston submit it on your behalf?
Actually, I've been having it for a while, and I had to update it last year, and they said they went to some new system that they're not speaking to each other or something. So how are they finding these hub companies if the system is not speaking, is showing the company inactive?
Right. And so I don't know if this is somewhat comforting or not comforting, but you're not alone. This is happening to quite a few companies. So when you go directly to the state of Texas and do your hub, that lasts a lot longer. Is that 4 years, Susan, or 3? 4. It's 4 years, right? So if you go straight to the state of Texas for your hub certification, that is 4 years. Now, when you go through an affiliate agency like HMSDC or the city of Houston, you are relying on that agency to send your information to the state and relying on them to make sure that your information is current. Now, there was a duration for quite a few months last year where the state of Texas was not taking any new hub applications because they switched over systems.
Or renewing.
Like everything was just like commercial break, TV timeout. And so I would find a contact, and Miguel put all that information in there directly with the state of Texas. And we always encourage everyone. I know there's reciprocity, but this is what happens. And I'm not saying good or bad things about any other agency, but control your own destiny. And then you're able to have your hub certification for 4 years and you don't have to worry about it. And Miguel's going to chime in and say a few things as well, but it's just kind of an unfortunate event that's kind of fallen through the cracks. And I would now work directly with the state of Texas. Go ahead, Miguel.
No, I want to echo that. I just looked at the state comptroller site. You are listed in the CMBL as active. It is your hub status is inactive, and has been explained. Work through the hub. We've got that contact information to try to resolve that because obviously your structure hasn't changed as far as ownership and whatnot that qualified them in the beginning. But the good news is you are on the ability for everybody in the state government to look at as a potential vendor.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I understand that. Also, I have a question, and I don't have a question, I guess, on I just got Hub Zone certified too as well in the fall. And is there any resources or tools other than I'm on the SAMs and all that, and I know how to use the SAM and all of that, how to touch bases with all those federal agencies that was listed, I think was on one of those PDFs. I think I found something on Homeland Security. Is it any other federal sites list that you can go through, or y'all have any resources for that?
Tim, you want me to handle that? Okay, so two thoughts on that. First, as Tim alluded to, anytime that there's a contract that's going to be issued for over $750,000, or unless it's construction, which is 1.5 million, and there are subcontracting opportunities, the agency has to go through and ensure that a market survey is being done to find out, are there potential small businesses, and then are there sub small business categories such as we outlined, WOSB, VOSB, SDVOSB, Hub Zone, 8A, whatever it may be that they're targeting there, that they need to meet their goals. So part of that effort is in what we call the Office of Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization, or OSDBU. The OSDBUs are at every federal agency, every procuring federal agency. So when I say a procuring federal agency, is that's actually a federal agency that's actually spending money either for them or on somebody else's behalf, another agency's behalf, and they're the ones contracting out. So that's a key component there. The OSDBU office will give you, here's the small business liaison for you to go and meet with, or to contact, of how to do business with them. Now, SBA has a position at major procuring entities, such as in this area at NASA, the Johnson Space Center, because they spend so much money, in a procurement center representative. A procurement center representative is SBA's staff, whose design is manyfold, but primarily is to make sure that there is a conduit for you, the small business, to get in contact with the procuring entity. So they help out with what they call a small business specialist at the federal procuring entity, which is part of the OSDBU office. So that's a lot of acronyms there, but just be aware that, between OSDBU and then, of course, the fallback being the PCRs, you trying to get into that federal agency can be accomplished.
Okay, appreciate that. And actually, I found the website for the OSDBU, and I think they have something May 26th. Hub Zone.
Many of the offices do. I know that I saw one the other day. There was almost every day there was something here in April and May.
Okay, then appreciate that information. I'm good to go now.
Okay, so we still have several questions. We're going to try to get through a few more of these before we have to continue on. Let's see. Philip, if you will unmute yourself, you should be able to answer your question.
Yes, thank you very much. So I have a business that does rate study and asset management, as well as compliance for water and wastewater management systems. We were just recently majorly affected last year, did a lot of work with Senate Bill 3, for those of y'all in Houston that know about Winter Storm Uri. So with the Infrastructure Act, I didn't see anything specifically, but I wanted to ask because I'm human, I could be wrong. Is there anything that you guys saw that directly affects water or wastewater systems in regards of legality or opportunities?
Well, there's two large projects related to water quality and water resilience. Between them, it was, I don't remember how much, but it was over $100 million, I'm sure. $100 billion. What I would do if I were you is make sure you're in the system for award management so that you can set up searches that will inform you whenever any of these get to the point where they turn into a request for proposal. Frequently, before we go to a request for proposal at the federal level, we'll do a request for information. And that's a great opportunity for you to get involved in and say, hey, here's how we would make you, help you solve that problem. Here's what we think you should do about that aspect of water resilience for the Western US. And that's a really good opportunity. So I think that's one of the first things that I would do. And then on the state level, I'd make sure I'm on the CMBL and that you have it set up so that you can look at the same kinds of contracts or RFIs that would become available here in Texas. And then if you know who any of the program managers are at the state level that are responsible for those kinds of activities, and I'm assuming you do from the contract you said you have now, I'd be calling them today and telling them, hey, don't forget we're here, we're ready, we already know how to work with you, we have a good tools, resources, people, database, we're ready to rock and roll. And just make sure that any certifications that will be beneficial for you, go ahead and get those done and dusted. Get them out of the way, because some of them can take few months to resolve. Some of them you can probably do in 60 days. So it's a matter of deciding which ones are going to be most advantageous to you and then get on them right away. Anything you want to add to that, Miguel? Okay. Yeah, I think, and that applies for anybody on here, whatever you do. I mean, you might be a florist and you said, well, I didn't hear anything for flowers. Yeah, you know, there could be a subcontract in there that involves place settings for dignitary banquets. I don't know. Could be. And if you're not in the CMBL and if you're not in the system for award management, if you haven't set up searches looking for those kinds of opportunities, then you'll never know that they exist.
It's funny, Tim, that you mentioned flowers. So we actually have a client who's a catering company. We have helped her win Chef Yo with Newski's Catering. She does catering for HCC. San Jack Miguel just got a big old smile on his face. He knows Chef Yo.
Yeah, we know.
U of H, San Jack, and every single catering event, she does flowers. And we also have a client who has her certifications, her hub and her metro, her city of Houston. And so Chef Yo hires Sharonda to do flowers at the event. And then Sharonda is now with Port Houston. So when they need flowers directly for an event or something special or what have you, they go directly. So really, the opportunities are endless. They're there. We're all here to help you put together a successful roadmap to navigate however you need to do.
Great story. Yep.
One thing I'd like,
worked with all kinds of businesses like that.
One thing just to a reminder there that, certifications can be great and helpful and whatnot. At the federal level, the key components when we're talking to somebody is that, do you know that for what you sell, your product or service, is it already set aside for a specific group? Because if it is, chances are it'll stay set aside for that group or maybe a subgroup. So in the case of a total small business set aside, it could have been at least a small business set aside. It may be women-owned small business. It may be service disabled vet, maybe 8A, maybe hub zone. But those are subcategories of small business. So if it's already set aside, but by all means, the only way you're going to be in the conversation for that contracting official is to be in that program, in that certification or in that development program like 8A. So please, like I said, make sure when you're doing that, it says, well, I'm not just going to go. Yeah, what we hear a lot of times, the frustration is, oh, I spent all these resources to get this certification, and then I found out I didn't need it, or I really couldn't use it. Well, if you would have listened to along the way to the different resource partners that we have in the area, we would have been able to tell you, says you just need to be a small business for that, or you just need to be a subcontractor. You just need to be this or that. So that's one of the biggest things that when we're talking to small businesses in our area is that we want you to have the best informed decision-making process and whatever we can do to make that happen.
And then as you stated before, the link for the CNBL, that was where again?
It's embedded in my presentation. So when you get it, you should be able to link it. But you should just be able to Google Texas CMBL and it'll probably be the first hit.
Okay.
All right. I wish we could be here all afternoon. We've probably got time for one more question, Emily, and then we've got some closing comments to wrap things up.
Okay, Rhea, you should now be able to speak. If you'll unmute yourself, you can ask your question.
Okay, thanks. Hi, Tim. I asked a question earlier about industrial goods and EV charging. So we actually have our DBE certification. The question I asked was, if you were in our shoes, what would be the first thing you would do? Would you go kind of the federal subcontracting route or just subcontracting in general? Would you go to TxDOT, or would you go to the likes of the city or, Harris County, more local entities?
I'm going to ask Miguel to chime in on that too, because right now I think it's a crapshoot. We see right now that some of the money has already been formula granted to the states for vehicle charging. So I assume that's going to go to TxDOT, but there's nothing that says it is. There may be another agency that for some arcane reason, maybe it's agriculture or something, that for some arcane reason, they're the ones that have to watch that money. So I think I'd definitely make sure that you're set up in CMBL with any kind of codes that will be able to get you access to those opportunities as they come up. But even more importantly for me is trying to nail down which agency is going to be working with this. Because if you can find out which agency in Texas is going to be responsible for electric vehicle charging, then in my opinion, you need to go see them now. You need to make sure they know you're available and that you have expertise in this area. So certainly make sure that you're capable of contracting, and as you say you are, level. What may happen is that money is going to come from from USDOT to TxDOT, then to the county level transportation people. That seems logical to me. So then you might want to look at which counties in Texas do you most want to do business in. If you can do business anywhere, then I would assume you're probably going to pick the most populous counties, but doesn't mean that's what you would do. So that's the problem is, will this get competed and awarded on a federal, national level for somebody to roll out electric vehicle charging, or is it strictly going to happen on the local level? And right now, I just don't think it's clear. Miguel, what do you think?
I agree. And let's say, let's not trying to muddy things, to say the U.S. Department of Transportation, which uses the DBE process there, maybe they're putting out something in the macro to ensure that the state of Texas does this. Maybe that's how you go directly through the federal, but otherwise you're going to the subcontractor through the prime, which is in this case the state of Texas. Now, state of Texas, if it involves here in the county or even the city, again, those different sections there. So there's the process there. Do your research, but know that somebody you can turn to, whether it be B2G, whether it be PTAC, to turn to find out who's going to buy my stuff for this, or who has done it in the past, because this isn't the first time that monies are coming down through the U.S. Department of Transportation to TxDOT and the other state agencies. So how does it normally flow? And then PTAC, especially since PTAC, remember, it's a federal contract, but they're state employees. So again, they have to be fluent in both languages. They're also fluent in the local, but they really have to show that fluency, that bilingualism in federal and state contracting, because they're so intertwined. So that's a great place to leverage.
And in your case, Raya, you should be able, if you're not already a client, I would think that you would qualify to be a client from what you've just described. They get a lot of people contact them that are, a one employee person that, has no revenue yet, and they're interested in doing contracting, and they can't take that kind of client. Those have to go somewhere else. But based on what you described, you probably fit as a model client for them. And you may want to talk to them because, as Miguel points out, they do have experience in helping people with TxDOT contracts. They might have some tools that will help them understand how that's going to flow, and they might have a little bit more of a granular ability to look at that than I do. And the B2G guys may have that as well.
Thanks. Yeah, I actually know PTAC very well. Tim Healy and I have talked quite a lot. But I'll talk to him about SLED as well, because I haven't talked to him about state and local.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, absolutely. State, local, and education. I mean, there are 22 school districts in the Houston metro area alone, right? 22. And they're all different, shapes and sizes. And so, maybe you're a little intimidated to go, straight with HISD, which is one of the largest school districts. You can start with Spring Branch, you can start with Tomball, right? And any and all of Stafford and any and all of the smaller school districts in between. I went ahead and dropped in our information in the chat and wanted to, really reiterate that, the learning doesn't stop with these sessions. And we're posting things on our website, on our social media all of the time to encourage everyone to continue the conversation as well as continue the resources for each other. That's how we'll all be successful, especially in these last 2 years more than ever. It's important to support each other and celebrate all of our victories, large and small. There are two additional sessions that are coming up. I'm dropping them in the chat right now. Next week, we'll have Mark Winchester with the SBA, and we're going to talk about how to maximize your women-owned certifications with the SBA. And back to, what Tim said and the percentage of these contracts that are set aside for women-owned certifications, as well as if you don't have your women-owned certification on the federal level, right? Because there's, you can be woman certified with the city of Houston, but that's not going to help you get a federal contract. All righty. And so maybe you have your women-owned certification already with the WBEA. That's not going to help you with the federal contract. So if you have those, great, you're more than 50% there with getting your federal certification. If you don't have it, then join us and you can learn all about the different opportunities that present on the federal level with set-asides as well as percentages on contracts. On April 26th, we are partnering with Dr. Shannon Deere with Texas A&M and Cheryl Miller, who are two authors of a book called Business Doing Good, about helping you with your labor shortage regarding engaging women and elevating your communities with how to incorporate women overcomers. Many of us small business owners are having such a hard time finding labor. Well, there is a system and a process with partnering with nonprofits to give these women an opportunity, not only to advance their careers, but an opportunity for you to help them and elevate your communities. There's the link for that if you want to join us virtual or in person. Either way, in person is going to be at the Texas A&M City Center campus right there off of I-10 and the Beltway. And, we want you to go ahead and put in the chat as we're closing, what are the 3 to 4 takeaways that you can use immediately in your business, right? It's real important to Susan, Emily, Tim, and Miguel and myself that you come to these sessions and you have what's called Monday morning moments, things that you can take away immediately, right? And so there are long-term and short-term plans, but we want to make sure that there are things that you can do immediately. That about wraps us up and we're out of time. Tim, do you want to have any additional closing comments for us today?
Go forth and prosper.
I love it. We're all here to help out. We will get the YouTube video posted up. We'll get stuff up on our website next week. And we look forward to seeing you maybe next week, if not on another seminar in the future. Take care and take care of each other. Have a great afternoon.